Today's episode is sponsored by Permanent Hearing Damage, which is a recording studio based in Philadelphia, owned and operated by Steve Roche from Seisha, Off Minor, Boer War, which you're hearing now, and many others. They've spent the last 25 years specializing in recording, mixing, mastering for punk, hardcore, metal, and related genres at artist-friendly prices. Some recent clients include Piers, Foxtails, Masanera, Closer, Rambo, Stinking Lizaveta, Sanagi, and Witching. Contact Permanent Hearing Damage via their website, permanenthearingdamage.com. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to sign up and support the show, read zines, get music sneak peeks, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing First Person Shooter by Dogwhistle. The song comes from their new EP, Textile Waste, which you can find on Bandcamp now.
I think the catalyzing event for me, and this is the weirdest origin story of a musician ever, is that so I used to be a stand-up comic, and I was running around Toronto, open miking and doing shitty, $10 gigs in the basement of bars, and I think when I was about 24, 25, some people that I had been meeting sort of were my teenager, and I liked a lot of hardcore and screamo, and I was like, all right, let me just poke my head into a couple shows and see what's up, because I didn't grow up in Toronto. I'm originally from the States, so I didn't really have a good frame of reference for what was going on here. So I started poking my head into a couple shows, and then about the time that happened, I was seeing all of these kids about my age, and especially a lot of kids younger, just doing it, playing a million shows, having this amazing community. I was feeling really burned out on stand-up, particularly as a trans woman in stand-up comedy. You can imagine how exhausting that experience is. And I was just like, screw it, let me try to be in bands and do music and follow that point of inspiration. And it has been really worthwhile.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know a lot of people that get to stand up after screamo, but not a lot. You're the first that's the other way around for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's there's so many ex-musicians in stand-up, and I feel when I was I'm playing in bands now, everyone was like, oh, you're gonna burn out, and I was like, dog, I'm already burnt out.
Yeah.
Let me taste my bliss and let me see where this goes. I didn't think it was gonna get to the point of oh, and now we have an EP, and oh, now blogs are writing about us. I thought I was just gonna have fun and make new friends, but I'm pleased as punch. So
yeah, no, everybody that goes the other way with it, it's always this is so much harder because no one's behind you, no one's like got your back, like more or less, like they do in music, where it's like you're up there, and even though you're the vocalist, like there's the whole band that's backing you up, like musically and just like as a presence, and yeah, I used to flirt with the idea of doing some kind of stand up, and I was always like, what, you know, I don't know anybody that like doesn't go to a club and try to do stand up. Like, I don't know anybody that just like does a recording of comedy, like they do, like they used to do like comedy albums. Like, I don't know anybody that just does a recording like that, having never done the other thing. So I thought that would be interesting to do, especially if it was like really dry and just like weird, but I don't, anyway, enough of that. It never happened. But like, what about the
And
rest of
life is
y'all?
long.
I'm sorry.
Life is long. You got all the time in the world to try stand up if you want.
Yeah, true. I mean, but yeah, I don't know. That would also be really funny to just like put one of my band's names on it and just like and people start listening and they're like, this intro is really weird. And then it's like 2 tracks later and it's still just me talking about like some idea I had about like a serial killer that got caught because like they were flicking their boogers like at the crime scenes or whatever, but
Yeah.
anyway, how about the rest of y'all? Like, how did, I'm not sure who wants to, like, let's just say Jaden. How did you get, your first taste of like involvement in music?
Well, when I was like younger, when I was like a teenager, especially, I wasn't really as tapped in or really interested into like heavy and kind of alternative types of music that I am now. I was mostly more in tune with what was going on and like kind of like the hip hop and rap side of things. So growing up, I had a lot of friends that were always trying to do that, which trying to become a rapper in this climate versus trying to be like a DIY band in this climate are two completely like different things. But I was just always surrounded by that and just being around people who wanted to create music. And ever since I was young, I've been drumming since I was like 8 years old. So I always knew that like, oh, I could kind of get into this music thing. Like I have one foot in the door already. And as hanging around all these people that were making music, I slowly and started to become more and more interested in doing it. But I knew that like rapping wasn't going to be my thing ever. Like that was not something that I wanted to do. And then as I started hanging around different people and getting exposed to like heavy music and just metal music and that kind of stuff in general, I was like, okay, like I'm more interested in doing this now. And as a drummer, it was pretty easy to kind of just jump into it and like want to become really good at drumming and find a band to do it with. And it took me a while to kind of find the people that and the scene that I wanted to, and eventually ended up here. And yeah, now I'm doing this.
Yeah, yeah. As a drummer, like you can like you stick your head in a room full of complete strangers that are guitar players, and you're like, I'm a drummer. They're on you like vampires. Like it's the drummers is always the thing that people need and is never around, and so it. Yeah, it's
Yes.
always
Yep.
a like, oh, thank God, here's a drummer. Like, yeah, come on in. But
It's
that's
like if you want to climb your scene social ladder very quickly, become a drummer. If you want to be in a lot of bands, just start drumming.
yeah,
That's like
exactly.
the best advice I can give somebody. Pick up the drumsticks.
For sure. Did you ever like do sets with any of your friends that were rappers though? Like with you behind the kit?
Like we always tried to get something off the ground in that sense, but it just like I think it got to a point where like even just trying to, screw around with them and like jam in the basement, like not even jam for other people or like play along to something. There was just always such like a creative difference in what we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it just never really went anywhere. But like when I was in high school and even elementary school, I was like the talent show drummer kid. Like I would find people in my class that would want to do something together, and it would just be like one song. Like I think in the 4th grade we did "We Will Rock You," and like just stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that like I really committed to playing with other people up until like post pandemic, really.
Yeah. What about you, Nate?
I didn't really stumble into it, but I kind of did in a sense. Like I've always been, my dad kind of raised me with his music taste. So like a lot of grunge and alt rock from the 90s, stuff like that. And I'd been to a couple concerts like here and there, but again, it was mostly like my dad's bringing me to music where he wants to see the music. But the first time I ever went to like a concert of my own accord was this local rock band called Cleopatra. I discovered them in like grade 9 or something, and then I convinced my parents to take me and my buddies to Toronto to go see them. It was this little tiny room called the Jam Factory. It was sweaty as anything, and I don't know. It was just like kind of seeing music, experiencing it in that capacity versus like going to the Rogers Center or whatever was like a totally different thing that I'd never really had before. And I don't know, at that gig, I just like looked at my buddies and I was like, we are starting a band now. And we did. That was like the moment that, made us start our little rock band in high school. And of course, I just been coasting on that for a couple years now, because that led to the next thing. And now I'm in Dogwhistle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's that's a way for a lot of folks is it's just like once you're there, you're like, this is it. Like there's nothing else, like,
yeah, exactly. I was just in that room and with all the energy and everyone moshing, and I'd never seen anything like that before in real life. I was just like, this is what I want to do with my life. In one way or another. Like I need to get in on this.
Yeah. Awesome. And now maybe like, because Kenley was saying like that you're a legend in your area, maybe we saved the most epic story for last. How about you, Marvel?
I was fortunate. I had an older brother, and I was introduced to like alternative and heavier kinds of different music at quite a bit of a young age. And I was like a nerdy kid who was really obsessed with things like who band members were in the bands, how many albums they put out, lyrics, all that stuff. We're talking like 7 years old, right? And at the time, it would have been like, things like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, but even like Slayer and Metallica. So that was like my introduction to like alternative kinds of music. And I knew from that, very early on, this is what I wanted to do in some capacity or another. The other thing I kind of had an advantage of is my mom was kind of a semi-professional singer. So there was a little bit of like a musical background to my family, at least on my mom's side. So I had that advantage. So, when I was a kid, she would force me to play like piano or whatever, like many other kids. Mm-hmm. But then as me and my brother discovered like, metal, punk, hardcore. Well, we both wanted to play guitar, so we got guitars, and that's how I learned. And what was interesting for me is I didn't grow up in Canada. I grew up in a country called Bahrain, and at the time in the early '90s, there wasn't that many people who listened to that kind of music. So there was a very small group of people, very niche kind of thing, and that kind of made it like even more interesting. And so, that was kind of like my entry point into music. And later on, discovering like hardcore punk and how that was very different culturally or subculturally than, bands that were like rock stars. You couldn't touch them, but then you discover like the scene where you can go to a show and talk to a band right after they play. You can, do exactly what they're doing and maybe open up for them, DIY and all that. And that was, absolutely incredible and mind blowing. And so I've more or less been playing in bands since I was about 13 years old. And no matter what I do with my life, even if it's not been a career for me, I think I will always play music in one capacity or another. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What what are some of the bands that you've been in that folks might have heard of?
I used to be in a band in the early 2000s called I Refuse. Maybe people have heard of them. I mean, it's been a long time. Then I played in a few other bands in the 2010s, and now I'm playing in Dogwhistle. So
Awesome. Yeah. I'm not sure if I Refuse just sounds like a really cool name, and so I'm thinking I might have heard it, or you know what I mean. Like that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Like that sounds familiar in a way, or if it's just like such an iconic name that I'm thinking it sounds familiar. Yeah. How about the everyone else? Like, are there bands that y'all have been involved in where you have stuff online that you would like to point people to? I know a lot of times it's like folks are like, I was, but let's not go there. But is there anything online that people want to direct people to check out?
I mean, I play in two other bands currently called Rot and Mace.
Okay.
And I like to think those ones are cool, so people should go check those out. They've kind of become Dogwhistle's like sister bands in a way because we're always playing together. I'm always on double duty, but gotta stay busy somehow.
Yeah, well, that works. I mean, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready or something like that.
Exactly.
So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely went through my periods of like being in active bands, like 2 or 3 at a time, and it works out pretty well when like somebody is booking a show and some random band drops or whatever, and you're like, well, I'm already going to be there. I'll just ask the rest of my other band, and then the next thing
exactly.
you got it filled out. Yeah.
That's happened a couple times at this point, I feel like.
Yeah.
Or I'm just like lobbying my friends putting together the show to like put another band I'm in on it just for convenience's sake.
Yeah. Well, we're all literally using like the same gear. We're just gonna hop over. A couple people are just gonna hand off the instrument cables, and then we'll be ready to go for sure.
Yep.
Well, I was talking to Kenley before, and there are some. There's like a comment on y'all's EP where someone, I was assuming it was someone involved with the recording process, made a comment about like what working on the EP has done for their like abilities as far as like I'm assuming it was the engineer that did this, but maybe I'm wrong altogether.
I think that was Hank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Hank on Bandcamp.
Okay. And well, this comment was like, it made it sound like the EP was in the like stages of production, whether that was like recording or whatever, for like quite a long time. And I'm not really sure like how accurate that is, but like when and how did the band sort of get together, and then like how long were you working on this batch of songs before you were like, okay, we're ready, like let's go like hit the studio or whatever?
Well, I was approached by Hank, who isn't here right now, but he's the bassist, all the way back in like late April, early May of last year. And the first 2 or 3 jams were just me, Hank, and Mariful. And then we had a few songs. We had like, I think maybe 3 songs it was. that we had Mariful had kind of came prepared with, and everything was structured and ready to go. And we played around with those, basically since May of last year. And then as the timeline went on, and we got Nate, and then we got Kenley. I think Nate joined not too long after, and then Kenley came in September-ish. We've been working on everything, all the songs that were on the EP up until we recorded, which was March. So yeah, almost a year practically.
Okay. So, right. Okay. So this was a member of the band whose Bandcamp comment that I was reading. That's so cute that there was like, it was like this thing. It was like, I love you all so much. Like, like I've become such a better, like, you know, it was something to the effect of like, I've become so much more informed about like music and what I'm doing. You know, it was something like that. And that's really cute that it was like just an actual band member, like just giving a shout out to the rest of the people that, you know, are in the band and like part of that journey. That's awesome.
Yeah, shout out Hank. He was the one that really brought us all together in the first place. Like, Mariful and Hank had met each other, and I had known Hank from his previous band, and just like seeing him at shows. And then Hank also knew Nate and Kenley. I didn't know any of these people, and he kind of brought us all together and was really the like glue that formed us into the band that we are today. So yeah, shout out Hank.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that, I mean, it's so it sounds like more or less everybody else like has had like all of this band experience except for Kenley. So you were just coming off of like performing in front of people and doing stand up, but it's, you know, like we've said, it's such a different thing. Like, how were you sure that you could just get up there and rip these screams like that? Like, did you like were you practicing like on your own, or did you just sort of like say, hey, I'll join y'all, and then you just went from there?
So I had, like, for a year prior to joining Dogwhistle, been in like the rinkiest of dinkiest, like a random like no wave screamo band, that in like true screamo fashion, nothing is recorded, nothing is online, the name is ungoogleable and unpronounceable. But so I kind of like mostly learned how to scream there, and then yeah, I mean, sort of what Hank commented, you know, Dogwhistle was like boot camp for me insofar as like, you know, getting together lyrics for songs and like solidifying like what register I want things to sit in and how I want things to sit vocally, like pretty quickly. As far as like performance, I cannot believe that I am admitting this in a public forum, but I am a theater kid. Shame, regret.
No, you're not the first person to say that on this show, believe me. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like getting on a stage and kind of doing whatever, you know, letting, you know, myself make instinctual choices and, you know, locking into like the autopilot that you sort of get in on stage when you're feeling really confident. And I've done that process a million times in my life. You know, I was like a theater kid. I actually was even more intensely like a dance kid. Like I grew up doing like competitive dance. I've done like the craziest vibe shift of all time, from like a dance mom's competition dancer to like in a noisy, abrasive hardcore band. But yeah, and I think it's as far as what I'm doing in Dogwhistle, because I I'm like flailing around on stage to the point where I wake up the next morning and I'm like, my whole body hurts. What the hell is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? But I mean, the songs are all like really, groovy and rhythmic and hard hitting, and I just like them. So I've just sort of enabled myself to just let my movement style and my stage presence just sort of flow freely and instinctually. Yeah.
Did you meet the other folks in the band like through your No Wave band? Is that how you were introduced, or did that come in some other way?
I met Nate and Hank just from like around the hardcore scene. I'm like kind of like I like literally like when people are like I like every style of music, like I actually do. Like I'm just at like the most random show. So like I like everything. I was going to a lot of hardcore shows about 2 years ago, and I just like met Nate and Hank from like around and connected with them because they're really cool, chill people. I'm good at pretending to be a cool, chill person and then having an autistic meltdown later in the car. And then Hank approached me in September. He was like, "Hey, do you want to write vocals on this?" And I was like, "Oh, that actually works perfectly," because my other band was kind of falling apart. Met Marful and Jaden and got along famously with them as well. So now we're here.
I think it's really like there's a lot of things on the EP that I like, but what this being only like your second thing, I think is the wildest thing to me because there are things there that I find so clever in a way that like I just don't see this kind of thing in hardcore, and I wonder if some of it is like, is that you consciously saying like this kind of thing should be in hardcore? And the thing that jumps out first of all is the riff in first person shooter, where you're just like you're annotating like what I'm assuming is like a gunshot, but also it's like an old school like doo-wop kind of thing, but in a hardcore way. The da 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 da. Like, is that the kind of thing that you're this is first of mind, or are these kinds of like, are you like, I'm trying to bring these kinds of innovations into this, or was it just like you heard that riff and you're like, oh shit, this is like the stars just aligned? Like, is how much of this is like forethought and how much is just like, oh shit, that'd be sick?
I think it's maybe something in the middle. I mean,
Okay.
I don't necessarily know that anything I'm doing I'm like specifically trying to annotate or push a boundary on what I think hardcore can be. At least if that happens, that's great. I just I think it just sort of like worked. I think straight up I just was like saying random rhythms, trying to find good cadences, came up with that, and then sort of realized that in context of the whole song, and like it just sort of like worked. I also thought it was kind of funny, and I was like, I think that I don't know. I'm a huge Shoo Shoo fan, and something I love about what Jamie Stewart does as like a lyricist is that oftentimes it's like really kind of funny and absurd and nothing like you've ever heard anyone put anything into writing before, but it like also works totally with the song. So I feel like it's had this like fun like Jimmy Neutron brain blast moment. I don't know. I'm giving myself a lot of credit here. It's just a song, but like it just sort of made for the song, and I don't know. I'm not. I guess I'm just not thinking too hard about trying to make a general comment on the state of hardcore because I'm just
I wasn't trying to like imply that anybody is coming out here saying like we're gonna blow the roof off this thing. You know, you're just making great songs and songs that you love. I'm just saying from an observer, like what I don't see a lot of is like the interplay with like different kinds of vocalizations from other like areas of influence or whatever, like, and I also thought like, and this might be just like I just haven't like stumbled around like the right records or whatever, but there was like the production itself is like quite different than what I might have expected from these kinds of songs or whatever. And I think it all works like in this way where it's just the influences that y'all cite on there like are certainly like they're like I'm like, yes, I see that, but then also like I'm like, yeah, I don't know, this is like has this really progressive like shape of punk to come ish like sort of quality to this recording as well. Like the vocal effects are like way over the top and like, but they work so perfectly. Like when you all were getting all these songs together and getting ready to go into the studio, like you were playing them all until you're comfortable, etc., etc. But how much like did being in the studio like inform what we're now hearing? Like how much of it is like exactly what you thought it was going to be, and how much of it was like, let's try some shit, like let's elevate this as much as we can, like, and things like that.
Marvel's probably.
I was like, who wants to answer that?
Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. Honestly, we did a lot of pre-production, and so we I came in with demo ideas. We changed a lot of it around. We recorded the vocals over the demos that I had. Finally had some time to work on it. I would honestly say about maybe 90 to 95% of it was already all thought out, even in terms of how the production was going to be. Then when we went into the studio, we recorded with this person named Jesse at Taurus Recording, who was phenomenal, completely executed the vision that at least I had, and I'm speaking for myself there. And Jesse did make some very, very good suggestions in the studio. I wouldn't say they were dramatic, like it didn't completely necessarily, it wasn't like a completely different song with his suggestions, but the suggestions that he made in the studio were so amazing, making the songs much more interesting and dynamic. So he really pushed that extra 5 and 10%. And so, yeah, I think we worked really hard. I think Jaden knows how much I drilled him even when we were just the three of us before Nate and Kenley joined. Just like really wanted to push as much as possible because I saw the potential in Jaden's drumming. And I knew as soon as I started playing with Jaden that this was going to be a great band and that he was going to become an incredible drummer. And then when Nate joined, I was like, this is amazing. Someone who could play without me having to really explain much, right? And and then Kenley joining, and Kenley absolutely blew me away with her vocal. So the stars kind of like just almost all aligned, and we worked hard on preparing before we went into the studio. So yeah, I think that was how I would answer that question. I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts to add.
Yeah, I would say we definitely worked hard a lot more than any other band I've been in, which was a really good experience for me personally. Just like the once a week practice, like clockwork, every single week is fantastic. But yeah, I feel like you're right in that your record's as good as your producer is, and we kind of had the best of the best. Jesse made a lot of really good suggestions, and honestly, some of the stuff is so like minor you can't even really tell it's there, but you feel it, like the piano and first person shooter. Bet you didn't know there was piano in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I did notice that. Yeah. I mean,
I mean, I didn't either, but he just, I don't know. He was going crazy. He was suggesting all sorts of stuff to us, and a lot of it made it in. And I mean, some of the stuff was just like, minor rhythmic adjustment or stuff like that. But I don't know. He definitely saw our vision, or, what I perceive as our vision anyway, and executed it flawlessly. So
yeah.
Shout out to Jesse.
That's awesome. And I feel like I recognize that name. Like, what else has Jesse recorded that that people might know? Because I feel like I recognize that name from like other friends' projects, but I just can't think of it.
Yeah, he does all sorts of stuff. He's his name's Jesse Turnbull. He sings in the band Clockwise. He plays in Dear God and Do Flame, who are some other hardcore bands from like Brampton area. But I don't even know his musical resume. He's produced so much stuff.
Yeah.
I can't even think of a single example, actually, other than outside of that kind of Brampton hardcore scene. But
yeah,
I'm sure you've heard his name. He's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
He did the Mace stuff, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he did the Mace stuff. That's my other band I was talking about. How did I forget that?
It's just it just felt like one long session, a double duty, like
Yeah, you know what? They weren't even very far
it.
apart. I just like kept going basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I didn't mean to imply that y'all didn't have like your songs like properly locked in or anything. I didn't mean anything like that. It's just like, yeah, I mean, even doing like my own recordings, like myself, like I can make decisions like while I'm recording something to where like the exact same band with the exact same instruments like might sound drastically different from A, the live version, and B, like the last recorded output of that band. It's just like something that happens when you're a part of that part of the creation and the translation. So yeah, it's just like interesting to hear like sometimes where like people are like, oh, I thought we were going to go in and and multi-track everything, but we actually did this and this live or whatever. Was everything all like multi-tracked, or was it like partially live? Like, what was the situation as far as doing the actual recording?
So I actually wanted to do it semi live off the floor, and with some of my other bands in the past, what we've usually done is a guitar player and the drummer recorded live off the floor to a click to give it that live energy.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse was like, I'm not going to do it that way. I feel like that's going to be what Jesse actually made us do was actually asked me to make sure that we come in with the pre-production demos like well thought out as much as possible. And so Jaden actually just played over the demos.
Oh damn!
And then we multi-tracked it that way. And I was a little bit concerned because I wanted that live off the floor, very like play to tape kind of feeling. But Jesse was able to capture it in that way, even though it was multi-tracked. Like that was something that really floored me, and how Jesse was able to execute that. And the demos were cool, but like the way we all played it together in the studio and the way it came out was much more accurate to how we do it live, and it sounds so much better. And I'm personally so happy with how it turned out. I've never been so happy with how recording turned out.
That's awesome. And were the demos that you took in, did you all record those to a click, or was that just like it was that locked in that you were able to play over them later?
So the demos were actually technically all me and Kenley. So I programmed the drums.
Oh, okay.
Verse. Even if we made changes to the songs, I would just go back and redo them. So if Nate came up with a part, I just demoed it at home on my own and changed or added Nate's part as an example. Or if Jaden changed the drums, I tried to do that. So I think we were just really locked in that we did it to the demo and a click, and it just executed really well. And like kind of Nate mentioned, we worked really hard, like clockwork. We were practicing at least once a week, no matter what. And shout out to Nate and Jaden, who drive from Milton or not drive, sometimes transit from Milton and Hamilton to come down and practice in Toronto with the rest of us. So there's been a lot of commitment to just push the boundaries and play as tight as possible.
Yeah. That makes sense that like the drums were programmed, and then because then they're still like more or less, that's still more or less like click perfect, right? So like, because I was just thinking, like I did that one time where like I had this project and we had done demos, me and the guitar player like playing the songs live, and then the guitar, like we had this whole situation because the guitar player was from the next state over and the vocalist was from like 2 states over kind of thing, right? And so the guitar player was supposed to come one day and we were supposed to record the instruments, like we were supposed to record like the drums and the guitars, but we were gonna, like, because I didn't have enough channels, I was gonna record the drums and he was gonna do a click into my ear or a scratch into my ear, and then we were gonna do the guitars. But then he couldn't make it like the day earlier, so he was like, can you just record the drums? And I was like, I can't just like record the drums. So I recorded with like the demo that we made into my headset, except that was not to a click, and it was like really weird. But like I managed to do it, and he comes the next day and he's like, I can't believe you were able to do that like that. I thought you would just play them from memory. And I'm like, we played these songs like 5-6 times, like I can't just but yeah, it's that, like that makes a lot more sense, like because the program drums, like the computer can't be off, so like yeah, that tracks. But still, like Jaden, did you find that challenging at all, like to because you're hearing this thing in your head and like what's different and what you want to do, but like that thing is still whispering in your ear? Was that challenging, or you just so knew what you were doing by that point that it was just all instinct?
So when we recorded them, I think what Jesse actually did was he muted the like MIDI drum track.
Oh.
So all I heard was the click. But for like my drumming, I was definitely like disciplined and prepared going in. I was still obviously really nervous because it was like my first time professionally recording in like a studio that cost a lot of money, and like time was everything. So I was nervous in that sense, but I was prepared. And when I got in there, I got the hang of it surprisingly quickly. And I feel like that gave me like a really big confidence boost in the middle of recording, and everybody else was in the room beside me and I can like see their thumbs up and smiling and stuff. And there was also like a lot of pressure too, because when you're the drummer, especially in this case, you're the first one out of them all to record, to do the recording. So having them there and having feeling feeling good about it made it really not easy, but like it made the process a lot better than I imagined it would be. And like for the actual drumming I do on the record, like it was every time we practiced, obviously I had the structure and everything down to a T, but like I would switch up like a kick or like a throw in an extra snare or take it out, and whatever I did on the record I'm super happy with. And Jesse gave me a lot of pointers and just like little quips to add in. I don't necessarily repeat those every single time we play live. Like sometimes when we play live, even now, I'm thinking of like new extra little things to add or switch up. So and that's the good thing I feel about a lot of the songs is like, and this is what Marifel always says too, is like, as long as you keep the groove, as long as we have something that like you can nod your head to or like groove along with to the drums and like the rest of the music, I think it'll sound really good. So there's not too much pressure to really be identical with the drumming, which I really appreciate. Unlike something like, I don't know, if you're doing like metalcore or something super technical where everything has to be extremely syncopated, there's a lot of wiggle room for me here, which I think is really fun and kind of keeps it exciting.
You know, you were saying like how it's like everybody being on board and like visibly expressing like how they were getting down with what you were doing was like reaffirming and stuff. And I was talking about like my instance of I had to do this when nobody else was there, and it was like whatever. But since then, I actually prefer to do everything when no one else is here because of that like pressure that you were saying that you felt at first, you know. It was like I'm always like if I'm here by myself and I can record the drums or whatever by myself before anybody even gets here, like since that first time, like if I can do that, like I'll do that every time because it just makes it so much easier for me, like, you know. But I just need to get, I need to get a crew that's giving me the thumbs up and, you know, the big smiles and everything like that. But
for me, I find it like, that's really interesting because for me, I find it the opposite. Like even just when it comes to like practicing drums and like trying to learn new songs and stuff. Like right now, I'm in the process of learning a bunch of songs for this other project in the future, and I'll sit at home and I'll try and like notate it or listen to it over and over, and I'll be like, I got this, like I'm gonna do it now. And I'm pretty limited in terms of like what my practice gear is here at home, but I'll just be like practicing on the pad, and I'll get like 30 seconds into one of the songs, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this right now. Like I need to go back and like reread, re-listen, re-prepare. But when I'm in a room with other people and they kind of not guide me, but like we go through the song together as a group effort and stuff, and we can kind of like dissect it and loop like that one part that keeps screwing me over or whoever. It makes like so much more of a difference, and like again like reaffirms that like it's a process. I feel like if I'm at home a lot trying to practice music stuff, I'll end up a lot in my head. So I'm very pro group when it comes to just like everything music wise.
And there's the thing where it's like everybody is trying to get on this level with the song. Everybody is going through the motions, and there's a part of you that's like, you don't have the option to just keep stopping and saying, even if you're like, can we try that again or whatever, that's different than like when you're by yourself and you're fully in control of like, I'll just press stop right now and go back to the beginning, So there's just a natural tendency to like, as a group, we're going to see this through and then we're going to address whatever's happening and we're going to go from there, So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's awesome. Like how, we have all these opportunities to, like Marifel was saying, like make a demo. And so everybody can hear that. And then you can have a jumping on point, like already, and things like that. Like it's a hard, like it's a far cry from like a lot of my first bands, which is like 4 people show up and nobody has like one idea where to start, So I don't know. It's like, it's awesome to be able to create music like in the time we're in, for sure, because of all of those things. Yeah. So, more or less the band started roughly a year before the EP came out. And then, I'm assuming like there was some time between when the EP was actually finished recording and then, it was being mixed and mastered and everything like that. And then like trying to figure out like what kind of release window you wanted and stuff. What has been the focus of the band like since that recording has like been completed as far as that goes? Like, is it like, okay, we're writing new songs, or is it like, let's go out and play some shows because we got tapes coming, like stuff like that? Like where are you all at as far as like you're going from the release to like what's in the future for you?
Sorry. I mean, I think once we were done recording, we actually got it out pretty quickly because we recorded in March and it came out at the end of May, because we were just like go 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 go, and then pretty much since then it's been like playing a million trillion gajillion local shows. I think we're just like, well, we're really lucky that I think people in our media area have responded really well to us, and B, we also bring a lot of backline, so we end up on a lot of shows. But yeah, we just played like a million shows, and I think we're really privileged that the Toronto scene is like insane right now across the board. So even in like playing a million shows, it wasn't like, oh, we're hitting saturation with the exact same crowd every time. We got to play to like screamo people, we got to play to like more trad hardcore people. We've gotten to play with like this very particular thing that's happening in Toronto. I don't know if it's happening other places where like the young Gen Zers, like the kids are just sort of doing very limitless DIY stuff that feels it almost feels divorced from genre in a way that like I gather the 90s were very segregated. So yeah, we've just been doing that. And then I think we are just turning our focus now to writing some new stuff, hopefully having a thing out next year. I was writing lyrics in the airport 2 days ago, so hopefully that gets done soon.
Awesome. You're saying that these shows feel limitless. Like, you mean that you're playing with like a bunch of bands that you don't feel like are usually on bills together, or like what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, like if someone else has like a different perspective, but I feel like there's a lot of cross-pollination that's happening in Toronto right now. Like hardcore kids are listening to screamo.
Mm-hmm.
Screamo kids are listening to harsh noise now. There are a lot of bands that I think are, and arguably we're a little bit actually in this category too, of bands that are like calling themselves hardcore, operating like a hardcore band, but the actual point of reference is nothing like Madball or, you know, insert or, you know,
Yeah.
Tsunami, Brain, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, people have been accusing us of being a new metal band, and there's actually like a lot of bands with like, who I think are interpreting the prompt of what if we sound like new metal in a really interesting way, like pulling a lot from like the 90s alt metal like roots and writing big hooks and stuff. But yeah, there's just like a lot of really fun, interesting things happening where we're from. So we've been able to play like a million different bills and you know, be friends with all sorts of people. I think it also helps that like everyone in this band is like very much around in like the Ontario scene, so we just happen to know a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like, you know, because you said that you didn't feel like it was like that in the 90s, but what you're describing is exactly my experience from booking shows in the 90s. And the reason for that was because we didn't like screamo was like a brand new thing. So like a screamo band would play with like a street punk band and like a band that sounded like they were on Fat Wreck or something. You know, like a screamo band would play with an indie rock band and like a band that sounded like Face to Face, because like you couldn't just put on a screamo show. Like there weren't enough bands in Indiana that played screamo. That you couldn't just do. You'd have to have like these other bands, and it wasn't until like I started playing music like on doing tours and stuff again in like 2010 and stuff, where people would say stuff like they'd be like, I gotta find a couple more screamo bands to book, and that's gonna be tough. And I'd be like, why do you have to do that? Like it's fine. Like on the way to the show, we're gonna be listening to like a Tori Amos CD and like, you know, and Sugar, you know, like we don't care, you know. But yeah, it's awesome to see that happening again, and like, you know, you can just be on a show with like a band that sounds like you know, like Blake Babies, and also a band that like sounds like Orchid or something, you know. But yeah, so like the demos are kind of happening, and you know, you said you were just like, you know, writing airport lyrics. That's got to be kind of like a strange place to try to get your head into that frame of mind. But what other kinds of stuff do y'all have coming up as far as like shows and stuff that you can tell people about?
Somebody else is gonna have to answer because I don't remember anything. I'm on island.
I think the idea until we record something is we have played a lot of Toronto, and like Kenley mentioned, we're just so privileged right now to be in a city where, you know, even if we play Toronto once every month or every 2 weeks, we could play to a completely different crowd. And we've been fortunate enough that we're the kind of band that hasn't been exactly pigeonholed into one kind of a scene, and that I think has been amazing. We want to try to play a little more some out of town shows, and when I say out of town, you know, because we live in Toronto, you know, within a 2 to 6 hour radius, there's quite a few places for us to be able to play. We're hoping to, for example, make it out to play Ottawa, where I'm from and I grew up from. We haven't played yet. I think we're playing St. Catharines again next month. We're going to be playing Kitchener in November, I think. And we're going to be writing, we're working on new stuff right now. And I did not personally anticipate the kind of response that we kind of got, the very positive response that we got with the release of the EP. What that means for what we want to do next year, I think we're probably going to have more of a conversation around that as a band, because I don't know if we've really all thought that far ahead. We're very happy right now with what we've been doing, and you know, the dream would be maybe one day we tour, you know, Malaysia or Japan or whatever, right? Even Europe and things like that. So, those are not like things we've seriously had a conversation about in terms of the future. But maybe that's something we might want to do. Maybe we're not able to do it. I don't know. Like I said, we haven't had that conversation. So we're kind of in a way, we're kind of just playing it day to day just to see what's happening. I don't know if anybody else agrees or disagrees with that. That's just my own perspective at the moment. Kind of living in the moment right now.
Yeah, you said that you were like blown away by the response, and I certainly I can't attest to anyone else, or I can't attest to expectations versus what happened, but just from the outside, I can say for sure that I have rarely seen a debut from a band get shared around and had such huge things to say about it as y'all's EP. And it for sure, I was like, yeah, I gotta check this out immediately. And when I'm hearing something for the first time, and I don't, when it's my friends and people that I already know, I'm over the moon about it, just but by default almost, right? But this is people I've never met, and I'm just listening to this and I'm blown away. I mean, to the point where I'm to my wife, who doesn't really care at this point, she's retired from screamo at this point, but I'm you gotta hear this, you gotta check this out, and she's oh yeah, this is awesome. So yeah, I guess what I'm just saying is that I definitely saw people hyped about it, and I'm excited for y'all that you felt that in any way that you did as well. But yeah, it's been great chatting with y'all. Sorry about any hiccups in the technical area or whatever, but is there anything that y'all wanted to chat about before we take off that we didn't get around to chatting about?
Shout out Como Regalia. I'm fangirling right now, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. Yeah, I half the time I don't even know if people know what band I'm from or whatever. So when that happens, that's a lot of times it's people that I know personally, so we're not going to talk about it. We'll just do that. But then when it's people I don't know, half the time I don't think, I've had a lot of conversations and people are oh, what band are you in? And it's I like that as well, because it's oh, just this band, we got a few songs, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think we got through as far as there's a few shows coming up. People can find y'all on Instagram and keep up with it as far as that goes. I know that there are tapes coming from EndNote Records. Do you have any information about that, or would you like to point people on how they can keep up with that and get a tape when they're ready, or are they ready?
Yeah, they're ready for sure. They're shipping out. Everybody go to endnoterecords.ca. I have a whole bunch of tapes here, and I'm desperate to get rid of them.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Nate runs EndNote Records. That's hence the pitch there.
Okay.
Yes, that is the reason for the pitch.
Awesome. Well, I was gonna say that I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, legitimately, Nate is putting out the coolest, craziest shit coming out in Toronto right now, so far as hardcore goes. So, genuinely, if you're listening to this, go look at EndNote's catalog. That's, I am in love with, everything he's putting out.
And that was my conversation with Dogwhistle. Thanks so much, y'all, for taking the time to chat with me. I really had a blast. If you haven't checked out that EP, you really need to get over there and do that now. I can't wait to hear what's next. Thanks to you all for listening as well, wherever you are. Make sure you stop by the Middleman Records YouTube page and subscribe so you can keep up to date on the show. Until next time, take care and do good things.